Yes. So I would say let's not overthink it. As I was overthinking it way too many times and for way too long before I started. I really wish I had started a little bit sooner. But the more I was thinking about it for this interview, I was thinking, wow, sourdough, and some people might not agree with me, but sourdough and children are kind of the same. They need so much time, so much patience, and they really need the right environment to thrive. Welcome back to another episode of the Breadwinner Podcast. It's your host, Caroline, here, and I'm here with another fantastic guest interview. I get to share a conversation today with Kellie, and this is one that's going to be relatable to so many of us. A lot of us are mothers of young ones. And so this conversation specifically is about juggling running a thriving bakery and homeschooling little ones. And so today I'm talking with Kellie Wolf. She owns Gloria Grain Bread. And she's here to talk about homeschooling, finding balance between running her business and mothering her children. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started. All right. Hi, everyone. So I am Kellie, and I started Gloria Grain Bread just about a year and a half, a year ago. And it started, well, it didn't really start with the sourdough. I really started with yeast breads to start out with. So like the babkas and the chalas and the braided breads, just some simple white breads that my kids would enjoy. I, of course, like so many of us, as I'm hearing, we wanted to steer away from the store-bought breads that have all the preservatives in them and the paragraph of ingredients. It just wasn't adding up for me when I know from my childhood and my dad and my grandmother and my mother always baking bread that it's very simple process, very simple ingredients, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. Once I realized I had everything already here in my kitchen, like down to the Dutch oven, I was gifted a Dutch oven, a beautiful, now I appreciate it. But years ago, I didn't really, what am I going to do with this huge, it was an oblong, large Dutch oven. It was so heavy. I'm like, okay, thanks. I'm never going to use this. And now I used it so much until the enamel cracked. And now it's in the graveyard on the top of the shelf again, not being. But so I started with just the yeast breads. My first bread was a very rustic Italian loaf, but it didn't look the prettiest, but it only lasted about 30 minutes here in the house. I think we actually had bread for dinner that night. The kids were so satisfied. I think I had something else going, but most likely it was just the bread. And then it just continued from there. I could not stop baking bread. Oh, I went from always being the appetizer lady at my family dinners. We have a very large family. So with all of us, it's people just like regular Sunday dinners. So everyone brings something, and I always brought, and then it quickly became, oh, Kellie's now the bread lady. And I would always bring an appetizer that was like a bread appetizer at that point. So some stromboli or a stuffed focaccia or, a flatbread, caramelized onion flatbreads. And I was just making everything from scratch and just really enjoying it. So the sourdough didn't start until someone challenged me, Kellie, why aren't you doing sourdough? And of course, I'm like, I don't know. It was just like a mystical thing on my social media. Like everyone does it, but I was so overwhelmed by the process, just watching on my phone. I'm like, no, I'm never going to take that up. I'm just going to stick to these yeast spreads. And then someone challenged me, you should try sourdough. So of course, in my mind, that was challenge accepted. I started my own little starter. Not right away, though. I literally spent, I don't know, months preparing and just thinking about the starter and the sourdough and what should I do? How should I do it? And then one day I went to my mom's house and I saw like a sourdough starter kit on her table. And I was like, that's amazing. How did you know? I was always thinking about it. I got to just seeing this little kit. She's like, yeah, actually, I was going to give it a try, but if you want to take it, go ahead. She saw how excited I was. She couldn't turn me down. I took that set home and started immediately with it. and started my first starter in that. And it really was slow. I'm not going to lie. It was a challenge getting my starter to where I wanted it. The bread that was coming out of the starter just wasn't like rising well. It wasn't the texture that I was hoping for. So it took a lot of trial and error to change the ratios of my starter and really, I mean, once you feed something every day, you really become really attached to it. So I was very attached to my starter and really wanting to get that up to par so that I could have consistent results with the bread. So yeah, I think I started out with the yeast breads and then it kind of just snowballed from there.
Yeah. That's such a fun story. I'm curious. I'm not a starter namer, but does your starter have a name?
Yeah, some people ask me that, and for the longest time, I didn't have a starter for it or a name for it. And then, I don't know, just out of the blue, I was singing and Olive, I don't know, Olive. Oh, that's Olive over there in my big Cambro tub. Yeah.
That's fun. I think that's the first time I've ever asked someone on the show, but the way you spoke about it, I was like, I feel like this starter probably has a little bit of a personality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I love it. That's so fun. So you started with yeast bread, baking for family, baking for extended family, moved into sourdough. What was
Yeah.
the progression from baking for family to baking for a business?
Yeah, so that started with, I'll never forget the moment. I had multiple loaves sitting on my table already baked. I have a big, extended, close family, and they already had all their tables full. They were good for the week. They didn't need any more bread deliveries that day or that week. I started mixing more dough, and my husband looks at me like I am an absolutely crazy person because we did not need it. It was just, I found a new recipe and I wanted to try it. So I was trying that. A lot of people probably were very confused by my social media because I made the switch so quickly from I was working 2 part-time jobs and one of them being real estate, which I was in for 7-ish years. So that was like a big career change to drop that and go over to being my own boss and starting my own business. I'm sure all of my followers on Facebook were possibly very confused. I guess I like to keep people guessing because I was like showing houses one day and then the next day, not the next day, once I started posting about the bread, they're like, wait, are you selling this? Is this just a secret little talent? So at first it was just my little hidden talent that I was keeping to myself. And then once I decided to go a little bit more public with it, I was like, all right, let me start posting, see what the reaction would be. Does anybody want to try this? And it was surprisingly really slow. My friends were just confused, I think. They didn't know what's going on with Kellie and her bread or the real estate. Once I got focusing on just the bread, I decided to challenge myself before I even applied for my home processing license. So I challenged myself to make 100 loaves of bread. If I can make 100 loaves of bread in a certain amount of time and still enjoy the process, because once I go and have my own business with it, I know I'm going to be doing a lot of larger batches. So if I can still enjoy it doing this large batch, 10 to 12 loaves at a time, then maybe this is a good fit for me and I'm not going to get sick of it or grow bored of it or get too stressed out. And the final challenge was delivering over 35 loaves to all of my son's teachers at the end of the school year. And I sure did feel silly delivering bread as a gift, as a thank you to my teachers, my children's teachers, but they appreciated it a lot. And I got all 35 loaves out the door. I spent all night packaging and wrapping and getting everything settled and sent the kids off to school and crashed as soon as they went to school. But then I picked them up and I just felt so at peace with what I did and how I completed it. And that was it. I knew exactly maybe this is more than just what I want. Maybe this is like what God has planned for me, and this is my path. Sourdough is mentioned quite a lot in the Bible. So we got to stick back to our roots and maybe just, I don't know, follow the crazy thoughts in your head, and maybe they're not so crazy after all.
Absolutely. That is such a fun evolution. I love the way that you challenged yourself and still felt fulfilled and peaceful and energized after completing that challenge. That feels like such a good way to test the viability of
Yeah.
the idea.
Yeah. If any baker out there knows sourdough, baking 1 to 2 loaves at a time is so different when you're increasing that quantity up to 10 or 12, or some people do way more than that. My kitchen can handle 10 to 12 loaves, like a batch at a time. So I can have 20-ish loaves going at the same time, but I like to spread it out, and then I deliver fresh bread essentially. So that it's turning into a daily thing as needed. So it's really nice that I can do smaller batches of 10 or 12, but the process changes a lot. The temperature of the dough changes, so things move a lot quicker. And that was something that I was seeing and researching, but needed to actually do the work to the whole. That challenge really gave me that foundation. Okay, this is what we need to do. And I wasn't licensed at the time, so I couldn't sell any of the bread, but I was donating a ton of it, and it was all being donated. So
Wow.
I'm sure everyone was really happy with that too.
Yeah, I love. I mean, I'm a baker, and I still would be happy with free bread.
Everyone on my road was very happy with me.
I would imagine. That's so fun. So you told me before the interview, you started homeschooling around the same time that you started your baking business, right? Tell me a little bit about that change and like what that transition looked like.
Yeah, so timing, you'll probably hear me say this a couple times. Timing is everything. And I got my license approved and ready to go. Honestly, New York State just took a long time approving my application. So that took 4 to 5 months for that to like get approved, which is quite a while. And I was just sitting here like biting my nails trying to get everything prepared for when I do get that approved, so I could just go right fresh. Well, I don't know what the saying is, fresh out of the gate. And so that came back as soon as the kids ended school. So that was in June. So in June, I started the business and started selling it publicly. And then I started homeschooling in September. So those couple of months, really, I'm so thankful I had those months for like just the bread business, so that I could really get my schedule down and really fine tune, get all the kinks out before I added even more bookwork or co-op trips, play dates into the schedule. It really helped me lock down what I needed to do before I added anything else in. So I'm so thankful I had that summer to just be at home and be with my kids. It was really one of the best. This last summer was one of the best summers I've had. Usually we travel a lot and we go camping. We didn't do anything. I was homebound for that last summer, and it was wonderful. I was just so happy to be having my kids home with me and knowing that they could stay home with me and that this wasn't going to end. And then I could just really focus on the business during that time and get that under my feet before I added in all the homeschooling stuff.
I love that just kind of space to, like you said, just sort of
Yeah.
work out the kinks and figure out your schedule. So
Yep.
I'm sure that once you did start homeschooling, that was a big kind of adjustment. Did the schedule that you had sort of established over the summer still carry over, or did you have to adjust? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I definitely did have to adjust it because over the summer, I didn't have to bother the kids. Okay, now we got to do this, go here, we got to do that. They kind of just did their own little thing. For the most part, we did little things here and there, but for the most part, they had a lot of freedom. So the weeks leading up to when school was starting, I slowly introduced the whole school thing because now I'm not just mom, I'm now teacher. And I'm so thankful my kids were so receptive to that. And they were so excited about it too. We have a playroom that we used for toys and everything over there on the other side of the house. And over the summer, we transformed that into our classroom. So that was really exciting for them, seeing the blackboard go up on the wall and getting their desks. And I really hyped it up. Like I wanted them to be excited about it because this is a big change, especially for my 9-year-old who had been in the public school since kindergarten. So he was his friends, everything, that's everything that he knew. So it was a big transition for him. And I really wanted to make sure that he felt special and he had his own space that he could work at as well and be a little bit separate from the twins. Yes, I have twins as well. So, and they are 6 years old now, but they are such a help. They are such a blessing. Everyone says to me all the time, oh, double trouble. And I'm like, no, I am like doubly blessed. These girls are amazing. I'm so proud of my kids, but I don't know where I was going with this. They really helped me and get ready for the summer or get ready for the homeschool year. They were just as excited. So once we got into our bookwork, that I changed my schedule so that I could have the mornings with them, like a relaxing morning. We didn't always jump right into get dressed. I wanted to unschool them from that because that's what we had to do for public school. It was always stressful getting out of the house and doing this and that. So we kind of just took a chill pill and we take our mornings to ourselves and we take a slower approach in the morning. But then once everyone's up and ready to go, we start our bookwork. And I try and get all the bookwork done before lunch. That's usually what I aim for. Usually they're a little bit more motivated to do it before lunch. Once I've let them out for recess and have fun, they don't want to settle back down. So at first our bookwork took a couple hours to do, but now as we're coming into the second half of the school year, we can get all, which is astonishing to me, all 3 kids, all subjects done in an hour and a half, bookwork done, like check mark. So I am very excited about that. But I do a lot. I'm a night owl, so I probably look exhausted because I was up late last night. But this is just my luck. I usually have a cup of coffee in my hand as well. But I am a night owl, so I do get majority of my work done during the night. If the dough is just sitting there, like bulk fermenting, that can be during the day. But if I'm mixing anything major, it's usually at night. And I'm so for sourdough having a little bit of leeway with it. I'm doing something very important with the kids, and that dough is ready to go. It's bubbly, it's jiggly, it's got to get shaped ASAP. My husband has come in many times. The lid's popping off, popping off the tub. So it's just nice that I can put a stop to the fermentation process and just stick it in the fridge and then get to it when I can finish the kids first. Because I can't forget that the kids are always going to be the priority with this. Homeschooling is taking on my kids' education is huge. So I have to keep that a priority before I head to the kitchen to do any dough work. But yeah, a lot of it gets done in the wee hours of the night right now. The other day I tried to switch it up a little bit and it worked. I got everything done, but my kids wake up early. So I have to get up super early if I want to get any work done before they wake up. They're children, they're needy. They want their mom. And I have a hard time saying no to them when they want to snuggle or sit on the couch or play a game or something. Actually, that kind of leads me into my next, I don't know where I had this written down because this is something that I really believe in, that if you give your child just like 15 minutes to 20 minutes devoted, like eye contact, you're sitting on the floor, you have their toys, you're in their world for that 15 to 20 minutes, that will set them up, at least my kids. I can't speak for anyone else. But if I spend that little bit of time in the beginning with them, they play for hours on their own and need me anymore. I was there, I played, and now I can go bang out my cookies real quick or my brownies or whatever it needs to be done in the kitchen. It's just, ever since they were babies, I've done that. Just really spent that little bit of time. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but to them, it's everything.
Yeah.
So, and then I can just pop out and sometimes they don't even notice that I left. Like they just flow into their imaginative play. And my kids are very creative and imaginative. So once they're in it, usually they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so great. Such a good kind of reminder that, yeah, the kids are not sitting there measuring the time. It's the quality more than the quantity.
Mm, for
And
sure.
I've found that with my kids too, that if I just sit down and have a face-to-face conversation, it's more about just that intentionality and like the connection where they know mom really wants to be a part of this moment.
Right.
More than the time. And your kids are around the same age as mine, where it's a lot easier in the age that they are now than it was when they were toddlers. So,
Yes.
like, to
Definitely.
listeners who have toddlers, it's a little different. Sometimes they are just hanging on your leg,
Yeah.
and so it gets easy. I always tell people it gets easier as they become more independent.
Every little milestone, like the twins sitting up on their own. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. The twins holding their bottles. Oh my gosh, this is so much easier. Every little milestone, it just really got so much easier as they could start taking care of themselves and helping themselves out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, and they love that independence. They love it. Now, if you do have like toddlers, I would and you have to do something in the kitchen, you have to do something with bread. Honestly, embrace the mess. My kids always love to do what I'm doing. So I'll set them up behind me on the table with just some flour, a bin, flour, water, cornstarch, water, those types of things. And they can really just get into it just like I am. And they're just as happy. They feel like they're just like mommy. So kids
Mhm.
really like to mimic us and do what we do. So maybe just set them up with their own little station. I know toddlers love to get dirty and messy. Most toddlers do. So I always try to set them up with something before I get myself too deep into anything kitchen wise. Yeah.
That's such a good suggestion, like a little sensory bin station, something
Yeah.
that is similar but a little bit separate so they're not trying to stick their hands in your own dough.
Exactly. They always ask me, is this for a customer or can I touch? And I'm like, no, this is for a customer.
Yeah.
No touches, but I'll set you up over here. My kids are just very big into sensory as well. The wintertime is dreadful here in upstate New York. It is long, it is cold. Most of the times there's snow outside, but sometimes it's just muddy and cold. So the kids can't even enjoy it. Utilize what you can in your house. I use my bathtub a lot. My kids love taking baths. And even in the middle of the day, I know it sounds awkward, but throw something in the bath with them. I've done a lot of odd things, pipe cleaners, pom-poms, glow sticks, but there's a lot of things you can do with working with what you have.
Yeah. I love that. That's so smart. There's something magical about the bathtub. It'll keep kids occupied for an hour.
Yeah, as long as they like can sit up and be safe in the bathtub. And like I said, my girls are 6, so they could definitely take care of themselves a little bit, especially when they're just playing in some water in the bathtub. The glow sticks, top notch. Go to Amazon, get the big, I don't even know, they come in like a 500 pack and throw 100 of them in the bathtub and turn the lights off. It is so fun. They absolutely love it. It's such a treat. And they think I'm like the best mom ever. And it was literally such a simple thing.
That is so fun. I love that idea.
Yeah. I was a daycare teacher and a nanny. So some of that might be trickling through into my adult life with children, with my own children now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so fun. So it sounds like one of the big things that you've learned or implemented is just being able to be flexible
Yeah.
and sort of roll with what the day throws at you. Because running a business and parenting, homeschooling, and having little ones is a lot. So I steer away from the word balance because I don't think we ever have a balanced life per se. But what does it look like to have, like, when everything is sort of in a rhythm that is supporting everything? What does that look like?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer. Like balance. Like how do you balance it all? You know, the one thing that I could really think of is to make sure you can balance it. Don't take more than what you can chew. Don't take on so many orders that you're stressed, and because that is your business. So that also needs to come as a top priority. If, you know, a customer buys your bread the first time, they love it, they're going to want that again. So consistency is really important with sourdough bread, which is also oddly very difficult sometimes to get the same product. That you could do the same process 100 times. And that's why I love that I challenge myself to do that 100 breads, because I got a whole bunch of different results and I got to see, okay, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, but I love this. What did I do here? So to balance everything, only take what you can chew. Your size of your kitchen, don't be taking on 50 orders if you can only really produce 20 breads in a night. So that's what I tend to do. And the demand for sourdough, I don't know if it's just my community, but the demand for sourdough is high. And they just want the bread. They don't really care when. They just want the sourdough bread. Everyone's been absolutely fine, my customers, with me saying, oh, you're going to have to wait for the next batch, which will be in 2 to 3 days. I'm fine with it. And I think that's a me problem, thinking like, oh, I don't want to disappoint anyone. But everyone is totally fine with waiting. They just want that consistent product. So I make sure that I can only take on what I can do here in my kitchen. And balancing that with the children and the homeschool is exactly that. If I know that I have dentist appointments and doctors and play dates and all this stuff, and I'm going to have to tell that person, you're going to have to wait 4 days for your sourdough, which I hate doing. Because that just sounds like a really long time for me. If I'm craving bread, like I want bread now, you know? Or if I'm out of my sandwich loaves and I need to make a sandwich, like I want that bread now. But I've gotten myself onto a good rotation where I can always have something in a certain process or a certain stage of the process. Always have something in the refrigerator ready to bake. I always have something in a tub fermenting. And I always have cookie dough and brownie dough in the freezer ready to go. So being prepared as much as you can, prepping all your work really helps with the balance too. It's ready to just write everything down for the week, your shopping list, everything. And balancing me time as well, keeping myself happy, not just here at home, but planning the girls' night or getting away from the kids for a second. I really think that has a huge part of the whole balance, because if I'm off balance, then everything is off balance. So if I'm not 100%, then something isn't going to work out right. So I try and always do my shopping runs by myself. Sometimes I have to bring the kids because my husband does have a full-time job that works like 12 hours a day. So it's basically just me doing all the home stuff and the kids stuff. But I do have local family if you can get someone to help you out. So you can just take that trip to Restaurant Depot to get your flour or whatever you need to do by yourself, so you can recap and get yourself 100% before you dive in for the week. It's very important.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that doesn't get talked about enough. Like, I am definitely a better mom when I get time away from my kid and take care of myself, when I get enough sleep, when I'm feeling healthy, and just like I get a little bit of reset time before I, like, even if it's 10 minutes to just take some deep breaths between the transition between work and them getting home or whatever. It just lets me be more present with them. So I love that. Sounds like knowing your priorities, your capacity, just being really realistic about what you're going to say yes and no to are more than balanced, but that's really what helps support the being able to say yes to the right things and be present in the right moments.
Right. Exactly.
That's so good. People ask me a lot how I do it all, and I'm like, I don't. I say no to so much.
I know. I just got asked that question the other day, and you must have a huge kitchen. It's pretty average, to be honest with you, but I do have 2 ovens and, you do the best with what you have. So, yeah, just really scheduling things out to just getting that balance, the lists, writing everything down. It really helped.
That's so good. So as you've transitioned in the last year or so to year and a half homeschooling, building this business, what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you learned about managing it all?
Yeah, so that kind of piggybacks to the other question about the balance. My biggest lesson is learning when to say no. I am a yes girl. You want to go here? Yes. You want to do this? Yes. Do you want to? Yes. Yes. I am the yes queen. I love doing it all. I'm pretty social, quite the opposite from my husband, who is an introvert and rather stay home and rather say no to everything. So we are a great team because of that. So he can keep me balanced as well and remind me not to say yes to everything. I had a big client over the fall, and that was a big learning lesson for me. I feel like they were trying a lot. So they came up for the season. I live in the Catskills, so a lot of people visit from New York City and Long Island. We have a lot of people that just pop up here for a weekend or whatnot. Well, I had a movie crew reach out to me and they wanted fresh bagels and all these things delivered fresh to their door for their crew. I said yes to the delivery. I said yes to basically everything that they wanted. And then they wanted more savory items. And I'm like, well, I don't really do savory items. Like, I don't even have, but I said yes. And did the product turn out amazing? No, it didn't. I wasn't proud of it, but I gave them an egg frittata, I think it was, or an egg quiche. And I'm like, I don't even do quiches, but I said, and they ate it. They loved it and everything. But that was not my wheelhouse. So sticking into my wheelhouse and just sticking to what I know and not being a yes queen for everything with the business, that has definitely been the hardest lesson for me to learn. I can't do it all. I can't, I'm not everything. I would never, ever say yes to like decorating cupcakes or doing cakes and sweets and that thing. That is not what I do. So I had to learn the hard way for sure with sticking to my guns and actually saying no. For that instance, I didn't say no. I just wanted to please them and give them what they wanted. So I said yes. But in reality, I shouldn't have done it. But you learn. And I
Yeah.
probably won't do it again. Nope.
I really think that's a lesson that most of us just have to learn the hard way. I learned the same thing with a similar situation the hard way.
Yeah. And I feel really confident now with what I can do. And that experience, I can feel more confident about saying no, just not what I do. But I had to learn that exactly that the hard way.
Yeah. I love that. I don't love
Yeah.
the struggle, but it's just so
Of course.
relatable. And
Yeah.
the way now you have so much more clarity on what you say yes and no to.
Yep.
I'm curious for moms who are running a micro bakery and maybe they're considering bringing their kids home or some sort of hybrid program, but nervous, not sure if they can juggle having kids home with building the bakery. What would you say to them?
Yes. So I would say let's not overthink it. As I was overthinking it way too many times and for way too long before I started, I really wish I had started a little bit sooner. But timing is everything. And I know God has a plan for me and everything happens for a reason. But the more I was thinking about it for this interview, I was thinking, wow, sourdough, and some people might not agree with me, but sourdough and children are kind of the same. They need so much time, so much patience, and they really need the right environment to thrive. So if you have a good setup at home where you can make it more of an educational setting, changing out all their toys, it's like these little things that add up to the big equation. My kids say all the time, well, we didn't do school today. I'm like, yes, you did. You played that game, a math game. You did then cat with the block. That was math. You did reading. You did gym. You did art. You did all of these things. And you didn't even know you were in school, which is so, so great because that's exactly what I had wanted for them was to basically unschool them from what they have been accustomed to with being in the public school. And go for it. If you feel in your heart that, it's going to be overwhelming, yeah, you're right. It is going to be overwhelming, but a new day will come. And once that new day comes, you have a fresh slate again. Really don't think that if you can do your business from home and then teach your children from home, that ultimately is a great setup because you're always going to be there and every moment is a teaching moment if you look at it from that perspective. So anything, car rides, everything has a teaching moment into it. And I try and tie that all in so that they do get the most out of it. I would also say for moms who think they can't juggle it all to really just give yourself the time to figure out one thing at a time. Okay. So you really want to figure out your sourdough process, possibly before you start adding anything else in. At least for me, that worked really well, breaking it down. So I had my business and I had the schooling. I started with the business, really honed in on that and got my processing down. Although things kind of change here and there, nothing's set in stone here, but definitely figuring out the one thing and feeling confident in that to move forward with the other thing, which would be for me, the schooling. And yeah, it's hard. It's stressful at times, but for the most part, everyone here is extremely happy and healthy. So I really can't complain. If you have anything going on with your public school and you're thinking about switching to homeschooling, go to your school board first. That's what I did. Try and change things slightly if you can. If you're not satisfied with what's going on in your child's school, you are one person, but your voice can be very loud and you can maybe inspire some other people to speak up. I know that's what I had done a couple of years ago when I was speaking up to my school board a lot about the problems in the school. And I think a lot of people were receptive to it, but they also told me to just go homeschool your children. I said, well, that's what I will do. Not right now, but you can do it. There's a lot of great programs out there that are free. YouTube is amazing with the educational things that are on there. Not even YouTube. I use the Good and the Beautiful program right now, and my kids love it. And I love it. They have so many resources. And it really simplified it for us moms. Like in highlighted text, they put read this to the child first. I'm like, okay, got it. Read this to my child. It was very clear what I needed to do to get them to understand the lesson. So a good program that you love could change a lot of my program. So
I think that's probably exactly what someone needed to hear. Just that vote of confidence and some kind of practical next step. I'm excited to hear people listen to this episode.
I hope so. My homeschool community here I'm in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains. So we have a lot of small towns, and you wouldn't think that I would have so much support from total strangers, that are down my road. Oh yeah, I homeschool too. So many people, once you're in it, you're going to realize so many people actually homeschool and they're there to help you. Mm-hmm. Speaking of homeschooling, me and some friends were actually starting up a new co-op and we're trying to do more of a community classroom. So us moms, like any talents that we have, we're going to take a couple minutes, 30 minutes to an hour at the beginning of our free play to teach a lesson. So someone's going to teach a science lesson one week. Of course, I'll do a baking lesson one week. We have a Spanish teacher, so we're going to get Spanish lessons in there and really start this homeschooling community. You're not alone. So really reach out to your community. Facebook is great for finding different groups that you could join.
That's so encouraging. Such a good kind of practical step to take. I love that. Yeah, and it really can. We get in our way overthinking. And I like that you said something along the lines of not having to have it all figured out at once, just figure out one thing at a time. So you started out by figuring out your sourdough process, and then that you had that firmly established before you went and tried to figure out the full homeschooling rhythm. That's really practical.
Yeah, too much at once. That's what leads to failure. I mean, you just get so overwhelmed and you don't even know which way to look or what to do first. So just really breaking it down and focusing on one thing at a time. I feel like I always have things going on in the background at the same time, but really honing in and getting one thing set first, and then we can move on to the next.
That's so smart. So when you think back to kind of when you were first getting started, both or either or, starting the sourdough process or starting homeschool or kind of a combination, what's one thing that you didn't know that you wish you had known?
He never knew that I would hate packaging so much. You look on, it's such a silly, simple thing, but you look on all your Facebook feeds and whatnot, and everyone has all this beautiful packaging. And I never realized how much time and effort it really takes to get that packaging to look that way. Formatting my printer, like I'm not very technical. So, like getting all my labels aligned and not printing off the label, it's dreadful. I absolutely hate that part. And that is something that I wasn't expecting. So I need to ask God for a little extra grace when I get to the end of it, because I don't know what's wrong. I just don't like packaging it up. I like, I'll bake the bread all day long, but getting it packaged and to you seems to be one of the harder parts of it, which is crazy because sourdough is quite complex. And labels and packaging should probably be one of the more simpler parts of the process. But for me and my brain, I'm just like, do this now. Now I got to do this. But, and packaging, you got to also let it all cool beforehand, which is something I honestly didn't account for as far as like my time schedule. So I'm like, oh yeah, that takes 4 hours to make. I'll just get it to you. And I'm like, no, I got to wait for that all to cool before I can package it. And that takes a long time for things to really come back down to room temperature. So, yeah, something I was not expecting me to dread, but I am working through it one bread loaf at a time.
It's so funny. I polled a whole bunch of micro bakers in a Facebook group like a year ago, and I was surprised that the biggest struggle that most of them named was packaging. So you're not alone.
No,
Yeah. I don't know. I think part of it is like we've already put in so much work and then it's, oh, wait, there's so much more work to do. I pay my kids a couple dollars to stick stickers on the packaging. And
nice.
they love to earn the spending money. We're working on financial management, teaching them that right now. And it saves me some time too. And it's honestly, that's quality time that the kids feel connected. They love having that bit of ownership in the bakery too. And they get to be really close to me. And so even though we're not like sitting face to face and working on something like in their world, they love being a part of my world too. And it's still quality time.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Maybe next year I'll let the twins handle that.
Totally. Yeah. My 7-year-old daughter, she just turned 7. She loves it. She's a perfectionist. My 8-year-old boy, he could take it or leave it. Depends on what his savings goal is, how motivated he is. But my girl, she loves it.
That's funny.
Yeah. But you're not alone with packaging just being a struggle.
Absolutely dreadful. I try and simplify my packaging as much as possible. Like the bread is the winner there. The packaging is just, it's getting it from point A to point B. So I just try and simplify that as much as possible.
Yeah. On the flip side, what has been one of your proudest or most rewarding moments?
Yes. So honestly, the most rewarding thing as a baker is when you figure out like a little simple hack that helps you or simplifies the process. And that I didn't have to go to Reddit or anything or read 1,000 comments or a book, my sourdough books to figure it out. I figured it out on my own. And that is so rewarding. I absolutely love when I can simplify like the process just slightly without altering the quality of the product at all. So one of the things is the sourdough itself, the starter, you're not supposed to put that down your drain. So I'm like, if I don't have paper towels in this house, like everything falls apart. I use paper towels to simplify everything. as much as possible. So everything really gets wiped down with a paper towel before it goes into the sink. I have my own well here, so I really don't want anything to happen with my plumbing. That would be dreadful. But so I'm wiping everything down and doing it before it dries. A lot of people wait for the things to dry so that you can just knock it and clear it off. I kind of like to give it a good sweep, wipe everything down first, and then let it dry, and then it is much easier. Using shower caps, those are so simple, so much easier than a wet cloth to cover the dough. Gloves, food grade gloves, those are like a lifesaver for me. You just cut out so much time from scraping that dough off your hands and really getting yourself cleaned up, especially with the kids. The gloves are amazing to just, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And I just rip those off, go on to the next thing, whatever it may be. But I figured all that out on my own. And that was just really a proud moment for me because it just made the whole process so much simpler. When I figured that out, it was like absolutely no greater joy. So simple, so pure, to just still have the same consistent results as well. That was a really big thing. So, oh my gosh. So I changed my ratios of my starter, and now I'm getting like the best bread I have ever made. And it was just no greater joy. I just hands down so happy with it. Honestly, I feel like a scientist sometimes with my starter, which I'm sure makes my 8th grade science teacher roll over. But I really do feel like a scientist sometimes. And I just geek out a little bit over it and love it. I love when I catch my starter right before it falls and I get to watch it fall. I have so many things I could be doing, but here I am sitting on my counter, like just watching my starter like bubble. And it's kind of silly for me to do, but it brings me joy.
Yeah, it's a childlike wonder. I love it.
Yeah. And I'm super proud of it too, because it's something that I created years ago and it's still thriving. Like it blows my mind. So
that is so good. I still, every single time, I'm like, just so happy that my starter, it's so consistent every single time when it rises. I'm not surprised anymore because it feels like, yes, it's doing exactly what it should be doing. So I don't have a fear of it not working at some point, but still just so thankful that these natural bacteria just do their thing with flour and water. It's amazing.
Such a simple process, but so complex at the same time. When I tell people that aren't very familiar with it, that, yeah, it's just flour and water. What? No, how could that be? And I'm like, day to day, it does its thing. So, yeah, it's really exciting to watch it keep thriving and just still getting those consistent results like every bread. It's hard. It's really hard for me now that I'm selling it to not like chop every loaf in half to see my results, because we know that's one of the best parts also about it, slicing the loaf in half and getting to take a peek at it. But yeah, I'm confident. I know that loaf doesn't have any gaping, tunneling holes in it, and we're going to send it off to get eaten. My whole little business here, I'm really proud of. You know, I really can't really pinpoint one thing. Started this coming right off of real estate, and I'm just pretty extremely proud of it. Also proud of my homeschooling journey. Never thought I would ever do that. Like in reality, I always wanted to do it, but never really thought. I'm a mother. I'm not a teacher. I don't know algebra. I don't know all these things, but there's a lot of resources out there to help you. And the worst thing that'll happen with homeschooling, I might learn something too. So it's okay if I don't know everything right away, that I can learn it with my children and they can thrive through that. So really proud of that. But God ultimately runs this business. I mean, I feel like my calling was from him with this business. And it's kind of funny like that. I have a devotional that I start every morning with, or at least I try to set the day off right. And today I didn't do it. And I'm like, so I got the time a little bit messed up today. So I had a little bit of extra time to get to my devotional. And of course, just right on cue, my favorite verse is in the devotional that I put on my labels and that I just base my business off, which is, to be thankful always and to pray continuously. So I'll stay with that as long as I have good communication with my God above. I'm so very hopeful for the future of Gloria Grain.
That is beautiful and such a beautiful way to wrap it all up. You've created this, God has gone before you, but you have built this business that is serving you and your family. And I love that when I asked your most rewarding or proudest moment, that you didn't have one specific thing, but it was those small little moments. Because I think sometimes we feel like it has to be this big, huge accomplishment or this massive light bulb moment, and it doesn't. So thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. So if anyone wants to connect with you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I post most of my things to Facebook and Instagram. I also have a TikTok channel, but that's kind of more for fun. I'll put more lengthy videos on my TikTok or get a little quirky and see a little bit more of my personality on my TikTok. But Facebook and Instagram, I post whenever I deliver fresh hot bread. I always post my pages on there. You can just search Gloria Grain Bread, and then you can also find the locations that the bread is being served at. Right now, it's 2 locations. We have a farm stand, which is one of the only indoor heated AC'd farm stands in the area. So I say farm stand, but it's really a store. She has all of her local meats there that she has a farm. She processes it all and puts it right into the shop. So you can't get any fresher than that. And she has a bunch of other things in there too. But the bread, I deliver it, excuse me, as it's needed. So that's been turning into almost every day that I have to go back there and deliver fresh bread. Some of the customers have been saying, "Oh, I didn't realize this was such a hot commodity. I really got to rush there now. Once I see that post, I got to go quick because it'll be gone." So it's exciting whenever I go there and I see an empty table. I'm very excited about that.
That's fantastic. I love that. All right. Well, this has been such a life-giving and encouraging conversation. I'm so excited to share it with the listeners and hear as they resonate. As always, to those of you who are listening, if you did learn something, resonate, feel encouraged, take a screenshot of the show and tag myself. I'm Caroline Bauer _sourdough and Kellie Gloria Grain Bread.
Gloria Grain Bread or Gloria Grain Bakehouse I've put out there as well. But Gloria was my grandmother's name, and she was not, I don't want to say obsessed, but she really loved bread, especially her cinnamon swirl bread that she had to have every morning. So that's one of my top sellers is my cinnamon swirl bread. So I find that kind of funny. But yeah, Gloria Grain Bread, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me at Greenville Eats, which is another location in Greenville, or at Jonk Family Farms.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story and your journey with us today. This has been so wonderful. For those of you listening, if you haven't followed the show yet, make sure that you do so you get to hear more encouraging conversations like this. And I will be back soon with another episode. But until then, happy baking.
Happy baking, everyone.